Welcome to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast, where you get unconventional insights into wealth building and retirement that actually work. Discover data-driven strategies and learn from a wealth of experience so that you can take your retirement to the next level. Now, here's your host. He was once bitten by a harbor seal, the income engineer, Kraig Strom.
All right. Thank you for that introduction. We're back on Personal Pension Radio. Not joined in studio this time. Mark Miller is out actually on one of the world's largest parking lots.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The California freeways are one big, large parking lot, that's for sure.
That is outstanding. It's basically your own personal stall that moves slowly forward as we go through life like a bunch of cattle. But I am in the 95th floor of the Personal Pension Radio Tower here in Southern California, broadcasting all over the world. Thank you to our listeners, by the way. We've got some fantastic listeners that are just dedicated from as far away as the Philippines, Australia, and the far, far off lands of Indiana, New York, Florida. Thanks for all being here. Really appreciate you listening. Personal Pension Radio, if you've never listened before, we are all about helping people prepare for, unfortunately, the most important piece of retirement, which is never talked about by most financial advisors, and that is the retirement income side of the retirement question. Right, Mark Miller?
That's exactly right. It is designed, our whole purpose is to educate everyone on how to do this and how to do it safely and how to have the income that they've worked so hard to create in their life. We're so passionate about it. We just really want to get the message out, and we're glad to help anybody that needs the help. In fact, that's where I'm on my way right now, Kraig, to do that.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you actually about where you're headed here a little bit later on, towards the end of our podcast today. Mark is heading out to a really tough appointment with some clients here in the local area. We work with people all around the country. For the folks who are listening in far off lands, about the only place that we don't work with folks is outside the country. The general geographic restrictions that used to be there in the olden days just aren't there anymore. So using technology, we're able to actually work with and help clients all across the country. So what we want to do today is we want to actually do a nice, quick, short podcast on a topic that has been actually all over the news and all over the financial news actually here just recently. It's starting to spread. And what we do is we cover this news that you should be aware of and watch your step. Be prepared. Be aware of it. It's a segment we called Watch Your Step. Now, this news came up with someone actually in our firm here who said, "Did you hear about this?" And this was something that kind of popped up on the radar about 3 days ago in the mainstream news. We'd actually been hearing about it in the financial world for some time now. The headline was, "Automatic enrollment in retirement savings plans could be coming soon." And they then began with, they proposed to nationalize all 401k and IRA accounts. Whoa, that kind of nationalize your 401k. That sounds kind of scary, Mark Miller.
Yeah, we have ObamaK. What are we going to call this? ObamaK or Obama retire?
ObamaK.
Holy moly. Yeah.
But I think that when we first started looking at this, this comes from, just so that you know, on Monday of this week, we're actually recording this on July 14th, and on Monday of this week, the president had hosted a meeting that they have once every decade. It's the White House Conference on Aging. I guess people don't age very quickly anymore. They only have to have that conference every 10 years. Okay. So every 10 years, they host this White House Conference on Aging, and he made it known, President Obama made it known, that for America to do better making sure the middle-class workers receive workplace retirement savings options, that he's recommending that they look at an option by which they make 401k and IRAs mandatory, that the government gets heavily involved, making this a mandatory program. So,
okay,
Mark,
so you know what I'm reading into this, Kraig? I don't know if you were probably thinking the same thing I am. It's kind of the first step. If you're an alcoholic, the first step you have to do is you have to admit, I'm an alcoholic, right?
Right.
And so I think I'm reading way past this. Maybe others are not. I think they're admitting, oh my gosh, we have a retirement crisis on our hands.
Absolutely. No, I don't think that's far off at all. I think that is extremely on target, that the federal government understands this in the backroom meetings. They understand in those secret behind closed doors meetings that they have a massive, massive retirement income problem coming up. And this is, in this case, their solution, though, this is the part that gets me. Their solution is, we just need to force people to save more. Because what they're suggesting here is that employers who do not offer retirement savings programs would be forced to offer IRAs and retirement plan accounts to their employees and automatically payroll deduct into those accounts on behalf of the employee. Okay.
Wow.
So,
well,
forced savings.
To be fair, I agree that we all need to start saving, all of us. As hard as it may be to come to that recognition in our life, in all of our lives, we all need to start saving. I get a little nervous when Uncle Sam gets involved, because Uncle Sam never usually does anything that doesn't benefit him.
Right. We're the government. We're here to help. Exactly. So why would they be pushing this? And I think, Mark Miller, you make a great point that the government taking this, they've taken a number of steps, but this is a first big step in saying that we've got a problem. We've got a serious, serious problem with retirement income in America. And their answer, though, is they've got to force people to save more. And once again, they're not addressing the most significant problem of retirement planning, which often goes completely undiscussed, which is income planning.
Well, don't they? I mean, if I remember correctly, the article kind of talks about, here's what some of the investments will be. In fact, we'll make them, part of the portfolio will be that they'll have to purchase government bonds. And of course, the Wall Street guy is out there saying, no, they'll never, that won't even keep up with the amount of inflation and all those other things. And so, no, give it to Wall Street and let us hold on to the money. Of course, we'll never teach you how to get it out of there, which has been the problem that we've been faced with since the advent of the 401k, which is a good thing. We're not, again, I don't want anybody to believe that we think that the 401k is a bad thing. What we believe is it's a good thing so long as you know how to position yourself in retirement to get money out and to maximize that income coming out. Is that fair, Kraig?
Absolutely, it really is. There's a piece in addition to that I think, as I read these various articles in that are showing up out there in the financial community, is there's a common theme here. It basically says this is targeting business owners, employers that do not offer a retirement plan. If you don't offer it, much like if you don't have health insurance, here's the health insurance that you will be forced to buy. And now what they're saying is, if you don't offer a retirement plan, here is the retirement plan you will be forced to offer to your employees. So what that says to me, and I'd like to get your opinion, Mark, just to see what you think. What that says to me, that if you're an employer, you might want to actually look at putting your own plan in place, one of your choosing, one that you're able to design, one that you're able to pick and choose, rather than waiting for the government to hand it to you and force feed it.
I totally agree with you. I mean, let's just use Obamacare for a platform or an example of what has happened. I mean, the whole talk is that the cost of insurance would go down.
Yeah,
I mean, everyone believed that the cost to the end user would go down. Well, the reality is the exact opposite has happened. The cost has gone up.
Exactly, and the cost has gone up. See, there's been in general, there's been cases where people have had lower insurance premiums and such, and that's fine. But there's been a vast amount of people that have seen the cost of their health care and health insurance go up. And unfortunately, the people who have seen some of the biggest increases in their costs are the people who can least afford it.
Yeah. I have a son that is in that age group. He's on my plan. But if he were off my plan and trying to use the Obamacare system, his cost would be triple.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. And so the idea that somehow that we can nationalize this and force all these employers, and of course it will be sold, I guarantee it, as an inexpensive way. It'll be fantastic, and I'm sure there'll be tax penalties if you're not involved. It will become another tax, if you will, on the small business owner who is just trying to make ends meet.
Right.
That's what will happen.
Right, and
long story short,
the term that's been coined for this, because this was actually originally floated, this plan was originally floated by then Senator John Kerry. So now Secretary of State, is that Secretary of State? Yeah, gosh, I can forget what he's doing, whether he's a runner, is he a skier? He's Secretary of State guy. Well, then Senator John Kerry had passed this, and what they called it back then, the term that was coined with it was automatic IRAs. And the Obama administration has endorsed these automatic IRA plans that were introduced back a few years ago. And sure enough, here they are again. They're really pushing for it. It would force businesses to contribute on behalf of their employees at a specific default amount. So in the budget report that was done back in 2013, they had set a default amount equal to 3% of an employee's pay, okay, unless the employee specifically opts out of the plan. Now, that sounds like, haven't they just given every employee the ability to opt out, right? Sounds like it, right?
That's what I would believe.
But
wait, there's more.
Yes, but haven't they created government plans in the past where everybody had a back door or a side door to opt out on, and then after the plan got through, they closed the door?
Oh, absolutely.
Or they
and then if you don't participate, you receive a penalty.
Exactly. So we have all seen this many times before, and the part that Mark and I think, are both on the same page with here is that we got to go back to the fact that the government has recognized most definitely that there's a problem. Definitely 100% recognize there's a problem. But their plan is to force people to save more, not necessarily to put a balanced plan in place to be able to achieve the retirement income necessary to not be stuck on government assistance.
Well, the funny thing about this, Kraig, is if you remember a few podcasts back, we talked about an article that was from a government think tank, from experts from all over the country that did some surveys with employees who said, yes, I would be willing. I would totally be willing to give up some of my income today to have a guaranteed income stream in retirement.
Yes.
Is that not fair?
Yep.
And so if I remember right, the numbers were like 8 out of 10.
Yeah, it was a very large majority of the people surveyed said for sure they would give up a percentage of their paycheck today to have a guaranteed pension later. No doubt. And yes, what they're talking about here is not pensions. It's just save more, put more money into government-mandated IRA accounts.
Well, because what does that do? That annuitizes what for the government, Kraig?
Well, it annuitizes their taxes.
That's exactly right. That way, they know exactly if they're forced to defer today, 30 years from now, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, whenever that event occurs, that then the government knows exactly how much tax revenue they're going to receive.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Totally.
Which means that they can dictate the tax rates at that time because they know how much money is sitting in this bucket of IRAs out there, whatever you want to call it. I like ObamaK.
I like ObamaK. I think we need to trademark that. We need to trademark that. That's going to be Personal Pension Radio's answer to this automatic IRA. No, it's going to be called the ObamaK. I like that.
So I just think that again, I am not. Please do not misunderstand me. That I believe that everyone needs to save, and I'm not saying that an IRA is a bad thing. We need to save. Period. We need to save, but we need to begin with the end in mind.
Exactly.
Begin with the end in mind.
Exactly. I've had a few conversations with people lately where I ask them that question that you and I have asked 1,000 times. Why are you putting money into retirement savings accounts? And the answer generally is so I can save up a lot of money for later when I retire. Well, okay, let's dig into that deeper. Why are you saving that money? What will you want from that money when you retire?
Exactly.
You want income. We want income. We want a paycheck. It doesn't really matter if we have a $2 million 401k or an investment account. If that investment account does not generate consistent, dependable, long-term income that we can rely on, doesn't really matter what the balance is, does it?
Then it would make total sense then, Kraig, if income is the answer, and it is, and I know that collectively all of you who are listening are raising your hand or nodding your head and saying, yep, that is the answer, then it would make sense then for us to understand how income streams work in retirement so that we could allocate our resources today in a way that would give us the highest income when we retire.
Yeah.
Period.
Most definitely. We have to allocate our resources today correctly. That leads to a perfect reminder for me that if you haven't already done so, you need to head on over to personalpensionradio.com, personalpensionradio.com, and download the free Optimizing Retirement Income report. This report is groundbreaking. Nothing like this has ever been done. This is academic research and validation of the type of work we do here at Personal Pension Radio. You've got to read this. This is going to sound like...
Perhaps we should send an email to President Obama and include the report.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the report would make it through the 50 other people who would read it, and none of those people care, Mark, because they already have guaranteed pensions.
You're right.
Yes, and
nice call.
Yeah, President Obama actually has a pension that will generate more income for him personally than what he has recommended from his budget office. For most Americans, if you remember back a few months back, you only need a certain amount of money to retire on, and then you can live on that much money. But of course, his pension generates far more than the average that he's suggesting for everybody else. So I don't think the report would get a lot of traction there.
Well.
But that doesn't change the fact that you got to get over to Personal Pension Radio, download the report. You've got to read this. When I say this, it sounds like a big number, but I've done this long enough that I know that the difference between your retirement income without a balanced approach and your retirement income with just an investments-only strategy, 401ks and investments and such, if you just have that strategy compared to a balanced approach that we teach, you're looking at, if you're in your 40s, you're looking at giving up over $1 million of retirement income because you didn't learn this. The cost of not learning what we're talking about here is millions of dollars in many cases. So We're serious. Get on over to that website, download the free report, read it, absorb it, call us, schedule an appointment. We'll definitely help you get through your own numbers.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Now, Mark, you're actually on your way to an appointment that it's actually kind of a tough story, and I think it's something that we should share with everybody just to give everybody some real world information here. Tell us about where you're headed and kind of how that all came about and some background there.
Well, it's really, Kraig, it's really the kind of the age-old story that we get to hear a lot, unfortunately. And it's a client who listened to a radio financial entertainer who believed that advice and started into retirement 7 years ago, taking significant distributions.
And now, wait a minute. Are you saying that they listened to this financial entertainer, and I think I know which one it is. This is the financial entertainer who is better than he deserves, right? Okay. Yeah. So he's better than he deserves, and this is also the same financial entertainer that used to have all of the licenses and restrictions and oversight and regulatory things that we used to have, but he gave those all up so he could say whatever he wanted, right?
You're exactly right.
Okay.
And
so he had given out some basic snippet advice on retirement planning, and these folks actually followed it.
They did. They followed it, and holy moly, you got all sorts of bells ringing there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
They followed it, and unfortunately, by following the advice and starting off with huge distribution rates, we've talked about this in past podcasts, within a 7-year period of time, just over 7 years, they were out of money. They were done. They were taking way too much. The portfolio was not earning what they thought it would earn.
Now, when you say portfolio, you're talking about investments, IRAs, 401ks, and such?
That's correct.
Okay, and so just to give everybody some background, the financial entertainer that we're talking about on his website, I'll just say it, I'm not sure if we'll be allowed to actually keep it in, but Dave Ramsey on his own website and on his podcast and his radio show talks about 10, 11, 12% average rate of return. And if we get an 11 to 12% average rate of return, then people should be able to take 8% out of their accounts when they retire, and they'll be fine. And so these folks actually, you're saying that they actually were following that kind of advice, that thinking, right?
They were following it. And we met them about a year and a half ago. And unfortunately, the bleeding was so bad at that point in time, all we could do is allow them to continue on from an income perspective, to be able to let this one asset, it's going to peter out and die. That's all we could do. And we moved over some of their other assets, a small portion of that asset, and tried to save it. Now they're going to take a small deduction in their income, very small, but we've been able to stop the bleeding of where they were at, move a small portion over, and then give them, using the tools of what we've been talking about, give them that 8% withdrawal rate for life without fear of whether or not it'll ever run out. We had to get her to be over age 70 to make this happen, but it's going to save her from an income standpoint. She can have a little lower income, but she's going to be able to have this income last for the rest of her life, and she's not going to have to worry about it running out.
And she's not going to. I was going to ask you how is when you first met them. Give me our listeners some insight into kind of what their state of mind was. I mean, how were they as opposed to where they are now in the conversation?
Panicked.
They were
panicked.
panicked. Okay. Wow.
They're running out of money. Everything is none of what they thought would happen happened. And the answer they continued to receive from their folks that were essentially what they called managing their money was, just be patient. Everything will work out. Just be patient. That's like saying to the guy who's laying on the ground and he's bleeding to death, just be patient. I know that the ambulance and the doctors are stuck in traffic on a California freeway. They'll get here eventually. Just be patient while you're bleeding out.
Yeah, you can't. And then ultimately, they realized that there was no going back, and they had gotten to that point, and
the damage was done. We've saved as much as we could, and the good news is that what they're creating now are lifetime income streams that will never go away. And needless to say, she is relieved at that outcome. She wishes 7 years ago that she would have met us and started this process, but unfortunately, she took the advice of a financial entertainer, and the result was disastrous. I'm not saying that happens every time.
I have to say it happens far too often, actually. And what I'm going to do here at this time is take an opportunity to put a call to action out to everybody who's listening and beyond this podcast, because as fantastic as this podcast is, we think we are, right? We don't reach everybody. So everybody needs to have a call to action and know that these folks that Mark is talking about right now, these are your parents, your friends at work, your brothers and your sisters. This is happening all day long. All across the country, this story is being repeated. And unless you make this introduction to a resource that can help them, this might end up, your friend, family member, or coworker could end up in the exact same situation as these folks. So don't let that happen, but also don't assume that it's too late. Someone asked, don't assume that it's too late. I had a banker here locally who asked me about one of her clients who is a very successful cardiac doctor, very successful guy, but later in life he's just continued to work because he's had some financial snafus and family things, and he's kept working, but when asked, he eventually admitted one of the reasons that he was still working was that he did not think that he could actually retire. So he had resolved himself, basically relegated himself to the idea that he would work until they told him that he could not do it anymore. Not because he wanted to, but because his financial plan was based on the typical Wall Street Monte Carlo income discussion, and he didn't think he could actually stop working. The reality is that with some readjustments in where he is now and putting together a comprehensive income strategy, he actually has an opportunity to retire that he did not think that he did.
That's a great call to action, Kraig. I think that everyone needs to just understand where you are, and that's okay. And rather than bleed out, if you will, to continue on in that metaphor, have someone let us take a look at it, or somebody. You got to get this thing looked at and put a tourniquet on it, or make some decisions that will allow you to reach the goals that you want to reach. Don't be afraid to email or ask a question of us, that we'll gladly answer any question
most definitely
help you along this road.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think we need to remind everybody, it begins with education. This podcast, it's impossible for us to put it all in there. We have included on the podcast website, though, access to probably the single best retirement income research paper that's ever been done. You've got to go download that, read it, absorb it, but get in touch with us so that you can get your own retirement income analysis done. Saving for retirement, save is all good, definitely. But if you've never had a look at what your retirement income options really are, you don't know if you're headed in the right direction. You just don't know. All you have is one side of the equation.
That's right. You're exactly right, Kraig. So email us, personalpensionradio.com, and we'll gladly answer your questions. There's no obligation. We're not asking for any commitment. It is about education, and we do want to help. We do want to help people figure this out.
Most definitely. Well, look, this has been a great time. I appreciate, Mark, you calling in from the parking lot here in Southern California. And to everybody listening, remember that call to action. Share this podcast. Remember, it's happening all around you that folks need this information. They need it. Be their friend. Be their advocate. Help them. Remind them. Tell them that there's help out there. And we will look forward to talking to you again on Personal Pension Radio.
Thank you for listening to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast. If you missed anything during the show, that's okay. We took the notes for you. Check the show notes for links, offers, and a full transcript. And don't forget to head over to personalpensionradio.com and download your free retirement income report. While you're there, we'd appreciate some iTunes love. Please leave us a fantastic rating on iTunes by going to personalpensionradio.com/iTunes. Thanks again for listening.